yóò láyọjú. Ẹni ebi ń pa kó má fi ṣèbínú. Kó má fi ṣèbínú. Ẹni ebi ń pa kó má fi ṣèbínú. Ilẹ̀ lànà. Bàbẹ̀ má gbàbí. Don't worry, I know I'm live. I believe I got... Oh, it's time. Good morning, everybody. Ẹni ebi ń pa kó má fi ṣèbínú. Bó jẹ́ ilẹ̀ lànà ṣayọ̀mọ́ níwọ̀n. Bó jẹ́ ilẹ̀ lónìí ṣayọ̀mọ́ níwọ̀n. Ẹ má bara jẹ́ ọba tó dáyán kó jẹ́ gbàgbé ra belé ṣinṣin. Ọba tó làṣìkí ń bọ̀ wá pèsè o. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be with you this lovely morning. So, you're the early bird. Remember last week, we did decide that we were going to start that new section, the week that was. So, let's talk about the week that was. It will be wise to shut off the noise sources around me. So give me a sec. I'll be back with you in a minute. Although I know you can hear me, so we might as well continue our conversation. So remember that bit about the week that was. So when dealing with the week that was, what we'd be doing is that we'll look at all the things that happened in the past week, the many distractions they've thrown our path, and of course, eke out whatever lessons might be in those distractions for us. So, two issues jump at me from the last week. The first is the Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan tango with the Senate president. And it's a distraction, and I mean it's a distraction. It wasn't about anything to do with the interest of the Nigerian people. It had nothing to do with the people, good people of Kogi, who have now been deprived of the beautiful representation of their beautiful queen, Natasha. I'm sure she would have at different points said things intended for the welfare of the good people of Kogi, but I doubt that even she or the ones listening to her within the chamber really cared much about any of that. And when they're busy sharing the largesse, I've not heard of any one of them complaining about the sick gap between them and the people they purport to rule, but whom they in truth afflict. So it is in that sense that I will say to you that it's a squabble amongst them and it's none of our business. But in reality, it's actually our business, because what you see is how they have managed to open up at least a little window into how governance or ruination works in the country Nigeria. There are 4 senators, female senators in the entire Senate. For good or for bad, one of them has come up with an allegation of sexual harassment. I hold no brief as to the, shall I say, seriousness of these charges in terms of the kind of evidence she might have available to back up her claim. But in a male-dominated environment where you had such a horrible allegation placed against what is essentially the number 3 honcho when it comes to the affliction of the Nigerian. And institutionally, the Nigerian Senate was pressed into Akpabio's service and became the fig leaf for an emperor who is patently naked. But again, that is the nature of power in Nigeria. And that threw up one very interesting joke on Twitterville and Zuckersbergsville. Please have seen it dotting the streets of the internet, NigerNet generally. And the supposition is that we have a very easy demarcation or separation of powers in Nigeria, that all things judiciary have been delegated to the wicked one that sits in Abuja, and that all things legislative have been given to Napodia, the Senate president, and of course, the BAT decides what happens in the executive. This simplistic oversimplification of our reality is actually, unfortunately, as true as it gets. Because even though it might seem like a rather simplistic conclusion to draw, the reality suggests that it is actually the truth of our situation. So that was part of what the last week has shown us. Natasha, Naxin, spilling over into the reality of how power is actually held or separated or not separated in Nigeria. And then the last of these things that has happened in the week that was is something that is completely out of the hand of every mortal, and that is the function of living. Everybody dies eventually. Everybody. We may live long or we may not. We may gather wealth, we may not. But the one thing that is certain is that everyone born of a woman will die eventually. Egbon, Dr. Doyinsola Ojoope died on Friday morning, I believe. Yeah. At least I got the news on Friday morning. He was a man I knew in the public space, and I did not get to know him personally until I received a call from him informing me of my nomination to be part of the Obi campaign. It was the first time I ever spoke with him. He didn't last long in the role, and I didn't work with him. So I really did not develop any personal relationship of any sort with him. Our politics have never been the same, but we share the common affliction of our humanhood. And this is what I would want each and every one of us to focus on, even as we may disagree with his politics. He is dead. He is beyond your judgment, and he is beyond mine. Whatever we might have had to say to him, I believe should have, anything negative you might have to say to him. I'm not counseling, do not speak ill of the dead. I speak ill of the living and the dead every day of the week. But there comes a point where you begin to ask some questions. Dr. Ojoope knew he was dying, and he still embraced the kind of position that he embraced. Let history be the judge. Please allow the bitterness to go. At some point, it was a part and parcel of the quest for change in Nigeria. Let's respect that, and let's not allow bitterness to become engendered to the point where men point at what you have to say or what you have had to say in this season. I'm not asking you to be blackmailed. If you will talk, stick with the facts and the truth. No abuses, please. Thank you very much. All right. So that was what the week that was had to teach. The week that was. Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock now. This week, I'd love us to talk to a subject that had been on my mind for a while. Indeed, I found that I had spoken to something similar, but not exactly the same. Almost a year ago, about 11 months ago, I spoke and I said, Nigeria, where are the elders? Or something along those lines. But this is not about elders. I'm not interested in elders this morning. I'm talking about fathers. And I said, Nigeria, the fatherless country. Who is a father? Because if I would look to a country, Nigeria, and then call it the fatherless country, this is in an environment where people speak to fatherland or motherland in relation to the country of their birth. But in my own case, I am saying unequivocally that the Nigerian is fatherless because the country itself is fatherless. But for you to understand whether Nigeria has a father or not, in the true sense of the word, father, we must begin to ask ourselves, who is a father? Now, it is critical that we understand that a father may be biological, it may be spiritual. But since this is not exactly your church where somebody is throwing demand for faith at you, since this is essentially a classroom where we must necessarily deal with empirical facts, we must ask ourselves, who is a father? Okay, so if you must go to the dictionary, it will probably tell you that a father is a male parent, yeah, who contributes to the conception of a child or who helped to raise a child, often providing protection, support, and guidance. That is a father. The person who either biologically provides the sperm, impregnates a woman, and who helps in the process of raising the child, who provides protection, he provides guidance, and he provides support. These are the principal functions of a father, whether biological or not. So when you speak to the father of nations, of countries, you are essentially talking about those who had provided protection, who had provided support, who had provided guidance to the idea, because every nation or country is an idea focused on ideals, or that is what they should be. And when you're speaking to these kind of persons, you're talking about Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. That is the person you would ordinarily call Mahatma Gandhi. Indians across their divides, and if you think you're divided in Nigeria, you need to go visit India. For every division you've got, they got like 100. And these persons, Mahatma Gandhi, rose above all of that to cement a disparate people because of a vision that transcended ethnicity, religion, and the multiple divides of that country. Commonly claimed to say about South Africa and Nelson Mandela. The people of South Africa across the Russia divide see him as the father of their country. If that country would ever be battered in equality, it will be because they have shared parentage, traceable to one person or the other, who provide common fatherhood to the multiple points of division within the country. Americans will speak about Thomas Jefferson. Every nation looks to its fathers. Ghanaians will talk about Kwame Nkrumah. The Turks will talk about Ataturk. Who do we speak about when we talk about Nigerian fathers? The father of nation is a title given to persons considered to be the driving force behind the establishment of a country. What is the driving force behind the establishment of the Nigerian state? Who are the persons under whose fatherhood Nigeria has been battered or nurtured? What kind of father? Because in reality, if you have children, it proves that you are fertile, you're virile enough to produce sperms that are viable enough to fertilize a female egg. But does that make you a father? What kind of father is Nigeria? Look, my people, the Yorubas, have a proverb. They say, "Àgbà kò sí mọ́, ìlú bàjẹ́, baálé ilé kú, ilé dahoro." Let me explain that to you. Àgbà ò sí mọ́, for the absence of elders. Ìlú bàjẹ́, a nation is ruined. Baálé ilé kú, the head of the family dies. Ilé dahoro, and the homestead is deserted. In the first place, let us be clear. When the Yorubas speak to the absence or paucity of elders, which may be equated with fathers in this situation, it is not speaking to their absence or the fact that they don't have people old enough to be fathers. No. What it is actually saying or speaking to is the absence of wise elders, responsible fathers, those who can provide the necessary provision as fathers, those who can protect the homestead, those who can discipline because they themselves are disciplined and temperate, those who can be role models to their children, those who can be teachers, visionaries. The absence of fathers destroys a space. That's why Yoruba spoke first to the collective. Àgbà ò sí mọ́, ìlú bàjẹ́. The state is ruined in the absence of altruistic, wise elders. That was the first leg of that proverb. The second leg says, baálé ilé kú. The head of the family dies and the home becomes desolate. He then brings it to the nuclear level where he's dealing with the family unit. The complete absence of parental responsibility, mirroring the complete absence of statesmen who are altruistic enough to understand the need to provide, to protect, to discipline, to be models, to teach, or to envision. Where are the fathers of Nigeria? They say, "Àgbà kì í wà lọ́jà kórí ọmọ tuntun ó wọ́." You cannot have elders in the marketplace and the child's head will be askew. All across our traditions in Nigeria, we carry our children on the back, and the person's eyes are front-facing. But altruistic elders will see when the child's head is askew and they will straighten it. Where are the elders of Nigeria? Where are the fathers? Where are they? Where are the elders? Where are the fathers? How has this country become what it is? when it has fathers, if it has fathers? Exactly what have become of the fathers? Look, let me, especially those of you who come back from your churches, where you have spiritual fathers with empty heads and who do not have any clear understanding of the need to provide leadership as fathers, but are instead complicit in the evil that has overtaken the land. Go to Proverbs chapter 13, 22. It says, a wise man, in some places, it says, a good man leaves an inheritance. He leaves an inheritance for his children. Woman stores it up. Righteous. What kind of inheritance have these fathers piled up? Please. We can only talk in terms of fathers when persons have acted responsibly and have left examples to which they may point and which makes them role models within the society that they have evolved. Where are the fathers of Nigeria? Where are the fathers of the judiciary, as it has become an aberrant child running riot and becoming a danger both to itself and to democracy? Where are the fathers? What kind of fathers do we have in the judiciary? Where are the fathers at the bar? Where are the fathers who have retired from the bench, who can speak with any moral authority? Where are they? What has silenced all of them? What has become of the fathers of Nigeria, especially now that people like Chivayo Adebanjo gone, people like Chief Edwin Clark gone? Who is speaking now? Where are the fathers of Nigeria? Where are the fathers of Nigeria today? Per UNICEF figures, we've got 18.3 million children out of school. And when they say 18.3 million children, let me break it down for you, because sometimes a lot gets lost in data if you don't look for the right things. They're telling us that 10.2 million children of primary school age are not in school. Let's get that clear first. What kind of father? That is the population of entire nations. 10.2 million children who should be in primary schools. They are not in school. I'm not talking about dilapidated schools or not having enough teachers who are qualified to teach anything that is relevant to life in this century, age, and time. I'm saying they are simply not in school. 10.2 million Nigerian children. 8.1 million who should be in junior secondary schools are also not in school. Let me break this down a little for you, because you really need to understand what these figures are saying. It's telling us that children between the ages of 5 and 14 who have not found any space in any school, whether that's Quranic school, whether that's technical education, they simply have no access to any form of education. You've got 18.3 million of these children. It doesn't get any better. 74% of Nigerian children, 74% of Nigerian children, this is inclusive of those who are in some form of school or who might even have primary school certificate. They have no maths or literacy skill. They can't add and they cannot read. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is beyond them. Do you understand? 2 plus 2 plus 2 is beyond them. They can't read. Even if you gave them books, they simply can't read because Nigeria has happened to them even before they are old enough to understand anything. Nigeria happened to them. They are not able to read. 74% of our children. Where are the fathers? The fathers are busy junketing around in private jets. We've never had more in Nigeria than we have today. They are busy in presidential yachts. Their governors are riding around in unbelievable luxury, living in gold-plated homes, crapping in gold-plated toilets. What kind of fathers do we have here? The country is dying, and the fathers are partying. And by the way, father has used in this sense is a synonym also for mothers. It talks about those who should sustain life, nurture life. Let's talk about the political fathers. Who is it that has held power in Nigeria that is in any position to speak credibly to the rot that has overtaken Nigeria? Who? Let me make you laugh. History will be by far kinder to Jonathan than it will be to Aremu. And the reason is simple. History will come to the point where it will understand very clearly that the very things that qualified Jonathan to become a deputy governor disqualified him in Nigeria from being. The same thing that qualified him for the vice presidency in Nigeria disqualified him from the presidency. But it pleased God to make that man a president. And he never forgot that he didn't get there by his own grace. That was why he could walk away from power in the manner that he did in 2015. To all of our own shame, including those of us who kept quiet, believing that he wasn't worthy of any defense, because we also knew that Buhari was going to be even more disastrous. But what choices were left to the people? But that is me digressing. I'm trying to establish a fact. When it comes to anyone having a credible voice in our political space to chastise or speak to the rot that has overtaken our land, it's actually only Jonathan, of all the lots that have lived, is the only one that has any mouth to say anything. The rest, what can they even lay claim to? If Obasanjo had built a legacy of good elections, he would have been in a position to chastise Buhari when he visited this evil upon us. But could he talk? Of course he couldn't. How could he possibly talk when he superintended the evil elections of 2003 and 2007? How could he possibly talk when once upon a time all you had to have was a PDP nomination and you were whatever you cared to be anywhere in Nigeria? So those who should have been fathers providing guidance lost their moral capacity to chastise evil. They do not have the voice because when they were there, when they could have shown examples, they failed. They failed woefully, so you can't point at them as fathers of the country. Nigeria, a fatherless country. Omashio. Omashio. What a pity. What a pity. And it is indeed a pity. Because Yorubas will say that Bomode ba shubu awowaju, tagbalagba ba shubu ẹ̀yìn ló ń wò. When a child falters and falls, he looks forward. But when an elder falls, he looks back to determine exactly what it is that he tripped over. Where are the fathers of Nigeria that could point Nigeria in the right direction? Where are they? In the economy? Where are the fathers? In the banking sector? Where are they? In religion? Nothing to write home about. Where are the fathers of Nigeria? Where are the fathers of Nigeria? Marshall, what a pity. Let me say this to you so that we just don't keep, as I said last week, in the absence of an understanding of purpose, abuse becomes inevitable. I do not come here on Sundays to titillate you. What I am seeking to do is a deliberate attempt at indoctrinating and educating you. The difference between a mob and an army is education. But there is a purpose to the education. I have no guns for you. And I have never been a practitioner of violence. But your brains, properly weaponized, is superior to any bazooka or AK-47 or 49. Nigeria says you are citizens. Nigeria also says that we are a democracy. You and I know that these are lies. I am not invested in these lies. We are neither citizens nor are we in a democracy. If we were citizens, there would not be an Akpabio sat in the National Assembly, talk less of heading it. If you were a democracy, Tinubu will not be sat in Aso Rock today. So we are neither citizens nor are we living in a democracy. But the Nigerian state is obliged to play this game where it lies that we're a democracy and that we are citizens. And that is the game I want all of us to also play. As citizens, quote and unquote, in a democracy, our votes must count for something. In the coming days, or let me say weeks, but definitely before the end of this month, a private member's bill, a citizen's bill will be forwarded to the National Assembly, dealing specifically with aspects of the Electoral Act that we believe requires urgent reform. I have shared these with you in the past, and they are on 3 planks. 1, the INEC regulation on which Mahmoud swore, but which he ultimately betrayed. Automatic transmission from polling unit level to IREV, from the rivers to IREV, must become a demand of law, not left to INEC's discretion. 2, in order to dilute the powers of these parties who have no ideology whatsoever behind them, independent candidacy must be allowed so that the Nigerian can choose by himself who he cares to lead him at any point, whether that be as councillor or as president. It is the prerogative of citizens to choose their rulers or leaders. And I will remind you that in the First Republic, it was much easier to register political parties. In fact, all these requirements were not part and parcel of the democracy of the First Republic. Why it has now come beyond us, I do not know. The third leg is diaspora voting. If diaspora financing of the Nigerian economy is as large as it has become, then I think it is about time that we pay attention to the fact that those who are able to bring their economic capacity into Nigeria and are Nigerians are entitled to a vote. This happens in other countries. Why should Nigeria be unique in denying its citizens, quote and unquote, the right to vote in a democracy, quote and unquote? So let these three planks be the basis of engagement with the system. Now, let me be very clear. The illegitimacy of the National Assembly as it stands today should not be the basis upon which we will then uncover ourselves and say that we are not going to do this. Whether we like it or not, the reality on the ground is that there is a National Assembly. People, of course, by persons that you and I would rather not have sat in there. But because we've not been citizens, and because we are not in a democracy, we have what we have. This is the process for engagement with the system in a non-violent manner. Let them then refuse to pass this bill by a set date. We would have spent the intervening period educating ourselves and our brothers and sisters in the markets and on the street. These are duties that you hold to yourselves, because at some point you are going to have to draw these lines. If you're waiting for 2027 to liberate yourself, you are merely strengthening the bonds of your oppression. 2027 is a foregone conclusion in the absence of a deliberate campaign for liberation of the Nigerian. Your votes do not count as things stand, and you need to ensure that the judiciary, or rather, let me say it this way, you need to remove Wike's hands from our elections. You got it? Yes, remove his hands from our elections. I don't expect it to be easy. No, it won't be. The totality of their powers are derived from their capacity to manipulate the electoral process. These capacities are entrenched and found in the devaluation of your rights as citizens to a vote in a democracy. They are going to claim it back. It is not unlike the same campaign that we had against the military. For those of you who are from my generation, it's not going to be a tea party. Freedom and liberation rarely ever have. But it is for us as a collective. It is for us as a collective to decide whether we want to live as free men or whether we want to live as slaves. Nigeria is a country devoid of fathers. But if you are going to be good fathers to your seeds, good mothers to your seeds, you are going to have to take on the duties of fathers who envisions a time beyond the lifetime that they have been blessed with, who must understand the need to plant trees, the fruit of which they may not eat. You must be altruistic enough to want that future for your children if you are going to be able to commit to the struggle that lies in front, if we must be free. The madness that you are seeing replicated across the country, the feudalization of what is meant to be a democracy, the complete and utter silence of every voice that should be voices of conscience, is because you are a fatherless country. You need to rise as fathers of your homes, fathers of your destiny, of your children, to understand that it is only in your own demand to be free citizens that you can guarantee their future. Those who ran away, jackpot, reasonably so. It looked like a fantastic idea 10 years ago, 15 years ago. As recently as 2 years ago, you must have been feeling like you did the right thing. And a lot of you still believe you did the right thing today. But imagine that we all concerted our efforts and decided to be fathers to Nigeria. What is it that they have abroad that we do not have in abundance? All we have are irresponsible, visionless fathers who have failed woefully at the most basic of their tasks. A father protects the homestead. What has happened to Nigeria? Everywhere overrun by violence, banditry, madness, stealing, visionlessness of all sorts. Everything fathers should not do in homes, fathers of Nigeria have done to Nigeria. Incestuous in the extreme, raping their own daughters. That is exactly what the fathers of Nigeria have done to Nigeria. But enough of belly aching. It's time that you yourselves emerge as fathers of your homes. Stand, if not for yourself, stand for your children. I remember my father's generation waiting for my generation to resolve the problems of Nigeria. We didn't resolve it. We haven't resolved them yet. But I'm not willing to wait for my children to resolve these problems. And I challenge each and every one of you. You are going to die someday. But before you die, there is a need to vet a country that your children can call a home. They may bet that country and then decide as citizens in democracies to restructure it, perhaps to even break it up. But you, as their fathers, as their mothers, you have a duty to ensure that what you are leaving behind will not consume them, unless you are just as useless as the fathers of Nigeria, fatherless country. It's been a pleasure being with you again this week. I will see you next week. Stay focused. Stay focused. When the politicians are squabbling, it's not about you. It's never been about you. God bless you all. See you next week. God bless.